a lot more about mental health in the media, in the Globe and Mail, in reports, in stories, and so I'm just so happy that so many people are on the call and want to learn a little bit more about mental health and how it plays a role in the workplace. Thought I'd give you a little bit background on SOS, Stressed Out Solutions. We began about 10 years ago, and I started Stressed Out Solutions. I am the founder, and I started it about 10 years ago with the notion that I was going to do training and lunch and learns and tell stories. And what I found after about a year or two of doing that is that I went back to those same clients, those same businesses, and said, hey, what difference or what impact did the training or the workshops do for you and your company? And the story was always the same. The material was great, the interaction, engagement, everything that you expected a training or a lunch and learn, but there was no follow-up. There was no engagement past, hearing the workshop and participating in it and then going back to their desk to the extreme stress that they were going under. And so this is hence the reason for Stressed Out Solutions running a program like we do now, which is very comprehensive. And although I'll be sharing pieces of the SOS program, no matter what kind of mental health strategy or initiative you want to include in your company, I am going to stress this over and over again. Please make sure it's something that is sustainable and that is an ongoing part of your culture. So one lunch and learn is a great place to start, but it's not going to change, or you won't see the culture shift that you might be looking for. So I just wanted to start with that little piece of information. I thought I'd start with a story, and the story is about Jim. Jim worked for a company where he had been a leader for a number of years, and when I started with this business, I heard some rumblings that Jim was a tough leader. He was a leader that not everyone respected, but he got the job done. And when he first came to a component of the program that we were running with this company, we started with leadership training, and Jim came to that leadership training. And the neat thing about Jim is that at the end of that training, he says, Sarah, could I come back again for the employee training component? And I said, sure, of course you can. And he said, because I sat here and I thought I was here to really learn how to be a better leader. And what I learned was I have a lot of work to do on myself. And he came back in the employee training and participated fully and realized that some of his challenges, some of his stressors really reflected mental health. Today, if you asked him how he's doing, he would say he's a better leader, a better husband, father, and a better self, a better person. And when I asked other people that work with him, this is what I heard. He asks questions differently. He respects differences with people. And he works with my strengths rather than what my symptoms or my some of my challenges are. So I think that's just a good indication that a comprehensive program in learning about self and leadership can be really helpful in the workplace. Next slide there, Megan. These are just a couple of stats. There is no way that I can cover all the stats that are out there right now. There's thousands of pieces of literature and information, studies, reports. And I think they all lead to a couple of key themes. One is managers and leaders are really looking for more information so that they can do their job better, and they can understand people, and they can understand what's going on in the stressors that they're having. The other common piece that we see is that, and this shows it here, 79% of Canadian employees report some degree of concern with psychologically health and safety in their workplace. And this is, we usually see this in the form of communication, how we communicate to others, how we build teams. The old theory of team building looks differently today, and part of that is because we really need to understand what people are going through and how that affects the work that they do. The other piece on here is we do see the numbers, long and short-term disability on the rise, of course. Drug costs are often related to mental health and mental illness. And we see this thing out there called stress leaves. You might have experienced it in your own workplace, stress leaves for 2 weeks, and what that looks like and how that affects the environment in the business. So there's lots of information out there. Just keep reading, keep learning, keep growing. And then if we go to the next slide, we can see the reality of all of this is that 1 in 3 Canadians are affected by mental health. So what does that mean? It means that no, mental health does not discriminate, it does not exclude. It is in every business, in every family. And there's different degrees and different levels of types of mental health and mental illness, but the reality is it affects us in some way, either personally or within our network of friends, family, and coworkers.
Sarah, may I interrupt you for one moment? There's
Yes.
one question that came through. I thought I would ask, and you may be addressing this later. How do you navigate through team members who claim to have mental health issues, but you are unsure if they are being honest or not? Maybe they miss a lot of time for work, and others report they see them out late at bars, and you have yet to see any doctor's notes, etc., but they claim to have anxiety attacks that prevent them from coming to work.
Okay, so that's a loaded question, but a question that probably is on other people's minds as well on the call. There is a big conversation going on regarding, okay, so what if we're concerned that people are expressing stress leaves or expressing mental health challenges, and we're not sure, we do not believe that this may be the case. I always say side on the caution, because everybody's mental health looks completely different. So one person could say they have depression, it's going to look different than another person with depression. I'd say let's focus less on the less than 1% that might be doing this behavior of calling and calling it mental health, when there's still the 99% of your company that really needs to own it and work with it and understand mental health from a humanistic kind of point of view. So that's a big question, and I'd say we have to look at that case by case, and we could definitely have that conversation to really try to understand what's going on for that person. And maybe the anxiety attacks are only at work, and why is that? Maybe the alcohol is covering up the mental health symptoms. Why is that? So there's lots of conversation in there, but I would say let's take it case by case.
Thanks, Sarah. Next slide.
So next slide, please. So how does mental health show up at work? This is what we see. Low productivity, conflict, tardiness, concentration, all of these things encompass mental health. So when people say, well, you can't see mental health, well, you can. It's just how you look at it. So if my absenteeism rate at work is going up, it's something that I'm going to want to take a look at. If people aren't working to their best potential, why is that? We need to look internally at why is that, what does that look like, and it's not okay just to say it's stress, because really what does that mean? It means something different for everybody. There's a continuum of stress to mental illness, and everyone fits on that continuum somewhere. We do some pretty cool examples using a rope and using different conversations around this, but really as we go through this roller coaster of emotions and feelings and symptoms of stress, and for some people those symptoms don't go away. They linger, they intensify, and then we see some real effects in the workplace. Next one. Okay, so I want to address the objections right off the bat, because one of the things people will say is, or companies will say is, I don't want to invest in this, or I can't invest in this, or we just get a lot of objections about building a comprehensive program versus just a lunch and learn. So here's some of the things, and I'll try to address them quickly. We already have an EAP program. Well, fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic if you have an EAP program. My question to you is what is the usage? What is the percentage of employees that are using that EAP program? And if that percentage is quite low, you have to ask yourself why. Well, there's lots of reasons for that, but the biggest reason is people use their EAP program in times of intervention rather than promotion or prevention. And we want to educate and help others understand that that one type of program is there, even if you want to talk about nutrition, or I'm really concerned about a family member, that the EAP program is there for lots of different reasons. In comprehensive programs around mental health in your workplace, they will help people use that EAP program when it's appropriate. The other piece I'd like you to consider is that the EAP program is not best for everyone. there's a program we do that's called the Right Resources for the Right Individual. And what that means is you may not be the person to call an EAP program and get help, but you might be the person to attend a support group in your community on a particular topic such as depression or anxiety. You might say, I've had training in the past. Again, I would suggest you look back and question and survey people. What have you done differently because of the training you had a year ago? I in most cases would tell you that you will hear that they forget about the training, or they may have picked up one piece or two, but it really hasn't changed the culture in any way. The cost. So I'm going to show you in a little bit, just in a couple of slides, that the cost of a comprehensive program can be the same as a one-day training. And I know that's hard to compare and to think about, but I'll show you exactly what that looks like. We are not ready for these conversations. So to that I say, you know what, why not? What's going on that you're not ready for these conversations? I was at like an orientation to talk about the SOS program, and the company said, oh, thank you so much, but yeah, we're not ready for these kinds of conversations. And then right after, I was driving in the car and I get a call from one of the participants in that orientation, and she called and she said, we so need this. I am dealing with stress myself. I've been off, and I call it a migraine, but really what it is mental health issues, and I don't know how to say that to my employer. And it was just evident that everybody was ready except for the decision makers. So it's conversation that needs to happen. It doesn't affect us. Well, yes, it does. 1 in 3, so you can just put those numbers together. And it affects in many different ways. It may affect the coworkers, the environment, how a person comes to work and shows up for work every day. And finally, the timing is not right. I've heard companies say, you know, we're going through leadership change, or we're going through policy change, or we're in a crisis. Those are all the exact times you want to build in mental health. And our job, you know, as a comprehensive mental health program, or other places out there that do comprehensive mental health programs, is they're there to help you so that the timing can be right, and the outcomes of that difficult situation that the company might be going through don't appear so huge or overwhelming when you've got the right supports in place. Mental health is everyone's business. So what you want to look at when you're building a mental health program for your company is sustainability. So everything from the day somebody starts at your organization, there should be a conversation about mental health. The day somebody retires from your organization, there should be a conversation about mental health, and everything in between. Sustainable also means that there's multiple ways for people to understand how you have engaged and supported a mental health program at your company. So that could be visuals, on-site work, it could be you know, opportunities for people to learn and to grow and to understand mental health a little bit better. You want to look at a program that is engaging. So what I mean by that is you want people to participate in the program, and we look at that in tracking. You know, who's coming to trainings, who's coming to an event or a fundraiser that we're doing around mental health. What questions are being asked, who completed surveys. You know, we want it to be engaging, and therefore one of the things we do at SOS especially is that we present in a way that most companies don't. We're very light on PowerPoint, very heavy in conversation, in dialogue, in activities, and hands-on examples. And the third thing you want to look for is culture specific. So if a company comes in and says, yes, we can do comprehensive programming, ask what the difference in how they deliver a message to the construction workers that work outside every day is to the accountants or admin staff that work inside and are used to sitting in a boardroom for trainings. It should look different because we want to make sure that the message is the same, but how we deliver it through all of your departments and your industry is different. So this is an example of a corporate mental health membership program. And when I said go back to the cost of things, if you can look at that quickly, and we can always send this out to you if you're interested in further details about it, but the Platinum package, which is usually our most common one for an average size company, is you're looking at $3,500 a year. Now I'd like you to just think about that for a minute. How much does it cost for one more employee to go off on stress leave? How much does it cost to build 2 trainings a year into your program? How much does it cost to support somebody that's going on short-term disability for mental health challenges or mental illness? Within this kind of programming, comprehensive programming, you're getting all kinds of visual on-site support, one-to-one support, coaching, consulting, and where it says plus 30 credits, that's where you can add some incredible pieces to your program that is customized for you, like the training and other kinds of support that you'll see in a few minutes. So when you're out there searching for a program or an initiative that's going to help your company really invest in and support mental health in the workplace, look for a variety of different means in which people get messages and have the opportunity to have conversation. So talking about those credits, there's different ways that you can look at using those credits. One is a needs assessment. I would say when you're starting any type of program in your company, look at how you're going to assess where you're at today. So today you might be really knowledgeable and really understand the symptoms of depression and anxiety. But lately you've had an increase of people in your organization that have had post-traumatic stress symptoms or post-traumatic stress disorder. Or perhaps when we do an environmental walk around, you take really great care of your customers and their needs, and yet sometimes the staff don't have that same level of support, and we're there to help as a third party to look at what's going on in the organization today so that we can track and see the progress in a year or 2 years or 3 years. If we can, yeah. So leadership training, as I said, it's got to be hands-on. It's got to be able to support conversation, and this is really where the beauty of the work is done. So we do training, and a leader could be sitting there in that training for the very first time and may have some resistance, may not want to be there, may have their own mental health challenges, which makes it very scary to sit in mental health training, and this is where they're coming from. And the beauty of this kind of training is because we know that there's other things going on afterwards. They go through the training, and like Jim, he realized what else he needed. He went to the training but realized there was so much more he had to learn about himself, and that's what changed. Some people get an e-campaign or a newsletter, and that touches another point of mental health that they hadn't thought of. And perhaps they do the training, and then that triggers something that they didn't know about, but yet they think that maybe one of their staff members are going through it. So they do some more research, or they call us up and ask for some consulting around that area. So leadership training is just a component, and it can be used in your credits, and really the goal there is to get the conversation started so that leaders have more confidence and more tools to be able to talk about mental health. Another component then is the employee training. I always say that, like Stressed Out Solutions and other companies, we're there for the business as much as we are for the individual, because reality is business needs to get done. We're helping through employee training, is what we're helping is that employees are bringing their best to the workplace. And while they're working at work, they're doing their best. To do that, we do need to look at what are symptoms that people are coming with, what triggers those symptoms. How do we get the conversation going so that we get to a point where I can come to work and say, you know what, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm only feeling about a 3 today. And somebody can support that and say, hey, I'm going for a walk at lunch. How about we go together? Or if you need anything today, I'm here. I can be your buddy, your peer support. Or bringing them a coffee throughout the day to let them know that someone cares. We don't have to be at 150% every day. We need to be looking at giving our best while we're there, and at times taking care of our own personal needs so that we can then be our best for the next couple of hours if that's what it takes.
Sarah, may I ask a question, please? Someone
Yes.
has just asked, so on your corporate mental health membership slide, a question came in, does it matter how large your company is to the plan you select? So you're
Oh, excellent. So it doesn't matter. What matters is if you want employee training and you don't want 150 because you have 150 employees in that training, we're going to use some of your credits to, or you're going to purchase extra credits to, say, have 5 trainings instead of 1. So for a company that just needs 1 of each of those, it's exactly the pricing that's there. For others, they customize. So we work with a company right now and have about 220 staff. Well, they added in some extra employee trainings. But as far as the e-campaigns, the newsletters, the posters, it doesn't matter how many we send out. So you could have 500 people in your company, you could have 1,000. We will send those out and they will be for all of those employees or leaders.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay. And if we can, yeah, perfect. One of the things that you'll see in a lot of the trainings that you research out there is training manuals, or what they use for support with their training or their workshops, things they do. Ours, again, are a little bit different. It's not going to be another book on the shelf. We have very clear, very small little booklets that people, leaders, and employees write in themselves what is resonated for them, because we want it to be more like a guide that they can pull on when they need to. So we do different activities and they write in their own information based on those activities. We find that the manuals don't sit on a shelf somewhere. They're actually used and people take lots of notes and they put sticky notes in them and they just use them as a tool, which is really helpful. If you're thinking of looking at a company to do training for your organization, we know this, right? Having too much information can be overwhelming. We want to start with something and we want to build and build and build on that. If you could go on the, excellent. So as far as those credits that we talked about, or if you're just looking for one component of how to build workplace mental health program into your organization, here are just some other options where you can use your credits. We can come in and support and help build a mental health committee with you. So you may already have great champions already that know a lot about mental health, that have an HR background, that feel very passionate about mental health, and perhaps you just need some facilitation or leadership around how to build a mental health committee that your organization can then do some activities on their own, bridging the conversation of mental health. You can see there the SOS notes. So we believe that, you know, to see things in different ways is really important. So even though we try to talk to people in training, we do some one-to-one coaching or consulting, we also have newsletters and different written material that people can use as a resource. And then finally, this other kind of option, there's lots of options, but this is another one that I like. If you see that misunderstood little character there, we have a feeling deck, and we do a lot of training around feelings, emotions, where people are at for check-in purposes. And I'll give you a little story that goes with this. So there's a bunch of different cards: misunderstood, happy, overwhelmed, excited, creative, like all these different feeling words. And companies are purchasing these now, and you flip to the feeling that you are. We have one company, and they flip to the feeling that they are. It's on their desk, and it gives us a sense of where our coworkers are at, where our friends are at, where our leaders are at in how to address and how to support them through the day. In one situation, the leader actually brought the feeling decks home to their kids. And this particular lady, Sally, she had a 9-year-old boy who was really withdrawing from the family and some of his activities, and he was just being a little bit more difficult than usual, and she couldn't figure it out. And she brought these feeling card decks home, and he came to her the next morning and said, "Hey, Mom, I think I figured it out." And she said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "This is how I'm feeling." And he gave her the card that said misunderstood. Well, I don't know about you or if you're a parent, but wow, does that tell you a whole bunch of information. It doesn't tell you the whole story, but it was probably a word or a feeling that he was having that he couldn't explain. So they can be used in lots of different ways, but this is what I'm talking about: interactive ways of having conversation and talking about mental health just as easy as talking about the common cold. Next one. What do others say? So I just wanted to bring this out. Most importantly, when you're looking for training, look for a presentation style that immediately engages leaders and encourages trust for open and fulsome dialogue. This is key. If people are sitting there watching a PowerPoint, learning what depression is, that's not going to change the conversation at the table. It's not going to help and support and give managers the tools they need to feel more confident in talking to their team members about mental health. Now, we hear it time and time again. What about privacy and confidentiality? Well, I'll tell you this, that yes, that is there for a reason, and a really good reason. But the interesting piece is when we find that we do more and more work around mental health in the companies in the way that we're doing this comprehensive program, people share because they want to share. They feel that they're being listened to. They feel that they can trust their leader in sharing their story, and they know that it's just going to help them be better at work and be able to bring their best to work. So if you change the conversation, then that helps everybody feel okay about sharing what they want to share at work, and the more we learn about people, the better we can work with them for sure. Next slide. So what can you expect? Well, after a comprehensive program, our main goals are to increase awareness and understanding of mental health and illness, and these are the things that kind of come from that. Increase positive morale, decrease in absenteeism, increase in productivity, increase in individuals seeking help, and stronger relationships. Right now, we do work with some very large national companies, and we're doing a pilot actually with Starbucks. And the reason I share that is because we've had to be very creative and customize that for their culture. And that's the biggest key piece here is a lunch and learn or a box set program may not be the answer to your mental health needs. And being proactive and preventative is going to help reduce absenteeism, short-term and long-term disability, those drug costs that we talked about. People don't know what they don't know. So the more information, the more ways to communicate about mental health in a business, the easier it is for people to seek the resources that they need. I'm going to leave you with this last little story before, if anyone wants to stay on the line for questions, that's perfectly fine, but I'll leave you with this story. One of the things that you get in these membership programs is a role called resource consultant. What we found is that people come to our trainings and then afterwards they have lots of questions. And so these questions, now we've built a consultant role around them. There are things like, I don't know where to start, or I'm on a waiting list for support, or I don't even know about my EAP, or I've tried my EAP and it wasn't a good fit. We are not typically counselors or doctors or social workers, but what we do have is mental health specialists that are in your community that can help people navigate that system, help people figure out what their next best step is for today and for onwards. We want to keep the conversations going. And companies without EAP programs, this is an excellent option. And people with EAP programs, it is really a key element to helping people actually reach out for the help they need. So I just want to leave that with you and ask that if you have questions about those memberships, to please let us know, to give me an email at sarah@stressedoutsolutions.com or info@stressedoutsolutions.com, and also just ask the questions. If you have a decision-making team that you feel might be resistance, but you know that it's important in your role to bridge this conversation, let us come in and we can support that and help that conversation get started. Companies of all sizes, and of course it doesn't matter how you do it, whether it's through us, through navigating the many programs that are online. Start with something, and I hope you really help us stop silence, stigma, and suicide in the workplace. And thank you.
That's great, Sarah. Thank you. So I'd like to just offer now some time for some questions. Sarah is going to be here on the line, be able to answer those. So if you have any specific examples that you'd like to ask or some specific scenarios that you've been faced with, she's more than happy to hear those and also answer and provide you some direction right now. Okay, Sarah, I'm going to ask a question here. What's the process for creating a mental wellness or a mental health committee?
So really it's about looking at addressing the needs that you have right now. So what are your top 3 challenges that your company is facing right now? Secondly, it's building a committee or a group of people that you consider champions. And I really firmly believe that those champions have to come from all levels of the organization. And then the third piece is setting out a plan. What does our next year look like? How are we going to track our success in this mental health committee so that we can build on it and grow and learn from it? So I think those are the 3 biggest pieces is look at the needs, build your champions from all levels of the organization, and build in a tracking or a calendar of what you're going to do and how you're going to track that for the upcoming year. The program that we come in with is we do a whole day just built around how do you build that mental health committee so that it's sustainable and successful.
Awesome. One came in, can we see the membership level slide again, and please describe the differences. So Sarah, I'm going to go back to that slide.
Perfect.
I can. Hold on here, everybody. Whoops, hold on. It's coming.
And again, if you do have to run because of the timing, you can send me an email, but for this individual that's written in and plus any others that are interested, let me explain this quickly as best I can. Let's look at the platinum piece here. So it's $345 a month or $3,500 a year, and with that you get a strategy call. So it's talking with your mental health specialist, and we go through what your immediate need is or hope is for this program. That could be with a couple of executive from your organization, your HR group, whoever you think is best and knows some information in order to get the right collection of data for that. The orientation session is where we come out, the mental health specialist will come out and introduce themselves and give a quick little overview in a fun and an engaging way to say, guess what? Your organization cares about mental health, and mental health affects everyone, and therefore we're going to have some really great activities and engagement and trainings and give an overview of what the program looks like. Sometimes we hand out some stress balls and have a lot of fun, so a great way to kick it off and set it in the right direction. Family webinar. So we actually, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to announce this, but I'm going to anyway. We have one tonight, family webinar, and those run quarterly, and they're really great on all information regarding wellness and just health, where you can sit with your family, your spouse, your partner, and learn together. Monthly newsletters, you saw a little example of it. You get a monthly newsletter every month for each and every one of your employees. Poster sets. We actually bring in poster sets that dive into a particular topic such as depression, anxiety, or it could be on Mental Health Month. And then the e-campaigns, again, are sent to each and every one of your employees, and they go into a little bit more detail about a particular topic. So we just had Mental Health Month. So every week for 4 weeks, we sent out 4 different e-campaigns all about what people can do to engage and support Mental Health Month. Mental Health Resource Consultant is exactly what we just talked about with your employees, depending on how many credits you set up and how many times for engagement. Your employees can call me anytime, or their mental health specialist anytime. Within 24 hours they would get a call back, whether that be email or text, and we help them navigate the mental health system in your community. So it could be helping them find free resources, helping them understand what they might be looking for, whether it's one-to-one counseling versus a group support or that kind of thing, or they can call on behalf of how to support somebody else. It's one of our most popular programs. It's been very successful to date, and I think the biggest piece there is it's starting conversations. And people will say, is it confidential? Well, it is, to the point where some people just text me with a number and we don't even know who they are, where they're coming from, and it gives them an outlet that feels very safe and comforting to ask a question. Half-day HR coaching is exactly that. We come into your HR department, whether it's 1 or 5, and actually go through some scenarios where they've struggled or had challenges in working through, or common themes, like somebody will say, you know, we have a high rate of people just going on stress leave. You know, how do we deal with that? How do we support that? So that can be an agenda that is built together between you and your mental health consultant or your mental health specialist. Corporate consulting, same kind of thing as your mental health resource consultant, but on a different note. This is for a leader to be able to call and say, I'm really struggling with this. I don't know how to support this person, and we can walk through that scenario again as a consultant, helping you understand perhaps more about what's going on and asking the right questions. And then your plus 30 credits, as we talked about, that can be used for leadership training, employee training, mental health committee certification, or it could be used for extra resource consultant calls, which most people do. And then you have additional credits are 25% off. So that gives you a quick little overview. Companies like Starbucks and the larger national companies, they're definitely customizing their program. Other companies that are all in one site at one location fit very nicely with the Platinum. If we have multiple sites, it just means either multiple packages like the Platinum, or we customize it based on how big and the dynamics of that company. So I hope that helps. That's, I mean, as quickly as we can go through it, but I'm happy to answer any specific questions after the call as well, or through an email.
Great. Sarah, are there any age limits, or could one of your mental health resource consultant calls be from a child or a teenager? Are there any issues with, or any sort of boundaries per se?
Yeah, so we would want the employee themselves to call, and therefore it's usually an adult. Saying that, they might be calling on behalf of their child who's going through something. If somebody did get a hold of our number and called and they happen to be young, I would definitely give them a phone call to call and also help them understand why they need to talk to their mom or parent or a teacher or a caregiver or somebody in their life. But our hope is always that the employee calls and asks for support on how to support that loved one. Saying that we have a lot of young people, that 17 to 24-year-olds in some of our markets, and that's definitely onset for illness, so it's something that we pay a lot of attention to, and that's why customization is important, because how we have those conversations and deliver the message to those folks is very different than somebody that's been working in the same business for 30 years.
So thank you. So a couple questions came through there. So what's a credit worth? And part B of the question is, how many credits would leadership training be?
Good question. So a credit is worth $100, so $100 per credit. Training, leadership training, and you're going to put me on the spot here because I'm not at my large computer, I'm at the laptop. But it works out, and this is why we did it, that one leadership training and one employee training fit in that 30 credits. So I believe it's 6, but I don't want to be quoted on that. Okay. I can definitely send you that option, that breakdown.
Okay, great. Any other questions coming in? Good questions, though. It's great.
Good. So Sarah at stressedout.solutions.com. You can find more on our website regarding those credit costs and things like that. First step always is to start the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah. So what we did is we will be sending out